mom, and I said something about how I was ordering this new kilt, and she said, "Oh, you're part Irish. Did you know that?" And I said I did, and she asked if I knew what side of the family that was, and I said that it was her father, and she said, no, that he was Swedish, and my grandmother, we had an argument about who was from where and who came from what country, and my mom said that growing up, her father used to say that he was part Native American, and she didn't believe him, and she and her brothers the whole time thought that he was lying, and then until he passed away a number of years ago. And recently there was this huge family reunion, and my mom said that she only then found out that her father had not been lying. He was part Native American. And we continued our conversation talking about who on my mom's side of the family was from where, and who on my dad's side of the family was from where, and I don't think we ever really came to any great consensus. But learning about my history and my ties to my ancestors it's really interesting for me. I like to learn this, and it's fulfilling, and it helps me to feel some kind of rootedness in that history. But the truth is, the fact that I don't know all of those pieces, it's something that I want to know, but I don't really have to know it. It's not absolutely necessary that I have a full picture of where all of my ancestors came from. Because being a white person born in the United States to other white people born in the United States, I don't ever have to prove anything about where I'm from. The majority of my family originated from countries outside of what's now the United States. But my own status as a U.S. citizen grants me a number of different freedoms. And part of that is the freedom to not need to know this information, not need to know about those details. So most of the people who might help me piece together all of this information have passed away, so I don't know all of those details. But I do know, I don't know who exactly came from where, I don't know when exactly they came. I only have the small bits of information. I don't know why most of my family came to what is now the United States. It might have been religious persecution or promise of a better life. They might have just had the nomadic spirit that I seem to have inherited from somebody. The only thing that I do know about my ancestors is that at some point they became citizens. And they became citizens in what was a land that was new to them, a land that promised freedom. And this is a freedom that my family living today benefits from. The majority of my friends and the people I know are also descendants of people who were born in other countries and later migrated to what is now the United States, making a new home in this new place. Some of these ancestors, mine and others, came looking for something new. Some came looking for something better. And some came just looking for something safe. Though as citizenship has been passed down from generation to generation, the reasons for migration have largely been forgotten, as I have forgotten my own families. In some cases, this has led to a certain detachment from the reality of the situation that I and my family are the descendants of immigrants and perhaps refugees. That detachment, devastatingly, has led to many people forgetting that while they themselves are citizens and have the freedoms associated with citizenship, that their families were not always citizens of the United States. So too often these same descendants then pass judgment on those who are currently immigrating to the United States or have immigrated more recently. The profound lack of welcome to U.S. immigrants, refugees, and asylees in the United States is evident not only in our current legal system and the political sphere, but in the everyday treatment of refugees, asylees, and immigrants in the United States. So our first reading tonight comes from the book of Leviticus, where God says, "When a refugee resides with you in your land, you shall not oppress the refugee. The refugee who resides with you shall be to you as a citizen among you." Meaning that we are to welcome and not condemn those who arrive in the United States from other countries. The book of Leviticus is a book of moral codes by which to live, and the passage continues to remind people that you shall love the refugee as yourself, for you were refugees in the land of Egypt. Not only is showing love for the refugee necessary, but God also gives a reminder that, hey, you too, at some time, were a refugee. There was a time when you were also new. And there was a time that you were new to a land that was inhabited by people who were there before you. It's important for me to remember that the freedom that I have as a citizen in the United States is one that was forcibly established when white people from Europe first started traveling to what is now the United States. While many people native to the land were open to welcoming new people, those who migrated here brought with them a violent process of murder, removal, rape, forced religious conversion, and eventual sectioning off of reservation land. Land which often lacks the natural resources that aid in crop production and sustainability. Land that is often seized or misused when the U.S. government or corporations see fit. Land claimed and reclaimed, taken and misused, as we forget that the land of the earth is not ours to take or misuse. The gross mistreatment of the people who inhabited this land before large-scale migration has shifted to also include mistreatment of the people who more recently have immigrated here. And it's impossible to ignore the racism pervasive throughout our immigration system, from the focus on southern borders to banning people from predominantly Muslim countries. Though my whiteness plays a strong role, it's bewildering to me when I think of people from my family of origin who talk about immigrants and what they say, illegals, though a reminder that no person is illegal. That is the language, unfortunately, that is used by some of the people in my extended family, but that they are terrible people who should go back to the places that they came from. Some people in my extended family forget that we too once came from somewhere. Instead of condemning others, we should seek ways to love the refugees and the immigrants who reside among us as God urges in the book of Leviticus. We are called to love all people, including those born across borders that have been drawn and created by human beings, land that has none of its own borders aside from that of earth and water. Some of the fences and walls and lines were created by humans with no divine influence. Some of those borders of separation are meant to be crossed. As LGBTQ people in MCC, we are familiar with some of the human-made boundaries that are meant to be crossed. Having to cross many human-set boundaries of expectations, we're reminded that some of the boundaries created by humans do little more than divide people and establish tools for oppression and marginalization. Like the social boundaries of gender, orientation, and expression, some of the boundaries of land are also meant to be crossed. And when they are, those of us who are citizens have a responsibility. It's the responsibility that comes from the freedom to welcome immigrants and refugees among us, to welcome people and to help fight for their rights. Currently, families of immigrants are being torn apart. Children are taken from their parents, detained and deported, sent to places and situations that are unsafe and often unknown. People who've lived their entire lives in the United States are being torn from their communities. And if able to remain in the United States, many people are faced with judgment and scrutiny, and sometimes hatred, creating a hostile environment in which to build a new life, a life in the new place. While many people move from their countries of origin searching for something new or something different, the poem we read this evening by Warsan Shire is a reminder that many people leave their countries of origins because they have no other option, and they're forced to. Shire begins her poem by saying, "No one leaves home unless home is the mouth of a shark. You only run for the border when you see the whole city running as well." Many people are forced to flee their homes in desperate search for safety, only to journey to a place where they are not wanted. Shire continues, "Go home blacks, refugees, dirty immigrants, asylum seekers, sucking our country dry with their hands out. They smell strange, savage, messed up their country, and now they want to mess up ours up." Shire details a devastating journey that one would not choose if they had other options. At the end of such a difficult journey, people are met with intolerance and anger and unwelcome. But for Christians in the United States, it's important to note that not only does Scripture call us to love the refugees among us, but we should also be reminded that Jesus himself was a refugee. Jesus and his parents, Mary and Joseph, wandering and receiving no welcome themselves. So it's difficult watching the news. It's horrifying watching the news and seeing elected officials using the Bible to justify the horrifying act of separating families. And this, I think, makes our fight even more important as we instead practice the radical welcome that we're called to share. Working to love our neighbors, old and new, and create safe spaces for those who have fled the mouth of the shark. The problem of the mistreatment of immigrants and refugees is systemic, it's legal and political, and to combat this requires work at every level as well. So the problem is big, but our love is bigger. Guided by God's grace and driven by compassion, we can demand structural change by voice and by vote. We can create communities and environments safe and welcoming by having conversations and shifting the narrative around immigration. I did not choose to be born in the United States, just as someone born elsewhere did not choose to be born elsewhere. What I can choose is to make this country safe and welcoming to those who choose to come here, whether that choice is made freely or by necessity. My freedom as a citizen and as a white person to live and move about this country awards me with the freedom to build community and demand a legal system that awards others that same freedom. From conversations I have with my relatives about illegals, to joining others in the streets, to demanding sanctuary cities and safe communities, to fostering my relationships with people who have immigrated here, and simply showing up and asking what I can do to help. I can love my refugee neighbor as myself, and together we can all expand what it means to live in the land of the free.